Welcome guys, it's time to go through and rate each and every one of the drivers and how they got on over the Canadian Grand Prix. It was a cracker, and we're going to start right at the front like we always do. Max Verstappen, race winner. It was a fantastic race from him. It was one of the circuits that they had down that they'd absolutely struggled on, but he pulled off a brilliant lap in qualifying, good enough for pole position, lined up second. In the race, it looked like at one point he was really struggling, down to third place. Managed to get past Russell and up into second, and then it just looked like he was magically in first, wasn't he, after that safety car? I've looked at it again. He was lucky with that. Lando Norris got, because he was so fast, he got caught out. He was past the pit lane effectively by the time the safety car. He had about 8 seconds to react from the safety car coming down and going into the pits. And it's a quick pit entry, so it's not like you get time to slow down and into a corner and go in. You're right into a quick chicane, which you take pretty fast, don't you? So, going to give him some benefit of that. But Max Verstappen, a little bit lucky there, but he controlled it, didn't he? A brilliant safety car restart, and he managed his tyres much better than he did in the first part of the race, didn't he? And thereafter, he started to just pump in a few fast laps, bridged the gap, and then towards the end it looked comfortable for first place, didn't it, in the end? But a absolutely tremendous job. It's a top drive for me, and you might say, oh, it's another boring race, Max wins, but this was far from it. I'm going to give him a 10 out of 10 because this was a proper champion's drive. Second place, Lando Norris. I was a bit harsh for him in my race preview, thinking he had more time to make that safety car decision. And the team sort of screwed him a little bit, because it really did look like his race to win. He was 17, 18 seconds clear of the field. His car just came to life. Both McLarens did, didn't they? Piastri. Norris was comfortably 3-4 seconds a lap faster than most of the field. He was 3 seconds a lap faster than Max Verstappen. The car just came alive, and the safety car on lap 25 just came up the absolute worst time for him. It cost him badly because he came out third place. He had a cracking battle with George Russell, nicked that, and then just didn't have enough life in his tyres, I don't think, to then catch Max Verstappen. But a fantastic job from him. Probably a little bit disappointed with his quali. He was so close to being on pole. It was nothing between the top 4, was it? So but yeah, I'm going to give him a 10 out of 10 because I thought his drive was absolutely brilliant. My driver of the day, to be honest. Third place, George Russell. What a surprising and brilliant weekend overall, I should say. On pole position, a massive surprise. Nobody's seen the Mercedes being that quick. But in these green track and mixed conditions, we've seen them being really, really good. And it did help them with the early rain before sessions, washing away sort of the rubber that's been come down. And we've seen in a lot of practice ones the Mercedes being quick, haven't they? So on a green track, their car just comes alive, and they seem to have got that at every session in Canada. So it worked perfectly for them, did the rain. In qualifying, a brilliant lap from George Russell, Nick's pole. In the race though, he did have a scruffy race, didn't he? Held on really well at the beginning of the race, and then his tyres were dying. He probably should have let Norris go, considering how fast he was, and not fought that too hard, because it cost him a position to Max Verstappen. He made another mistake, and that cost him really a chance to hold on ahead of Norris for second at least. And then, he was passed by Lewis and did it. Actually quite a good job to repass him, because it looked like he was on the wrong tyres, on the mediums. Lewis was on the hards. The better race tyre at that point, you'd thought so, but he managed to, claw up on Lewis. Keep third place. I think overall he was disappointed because it was a scruffy race from him. He should have definitely had second. That car was quick. And could they have really won it? It's touch and go that, because his car was struggling in the middle part of the race, wasn't it? It wasn't as lively as it was early on, but a very good recovery and a good weekend for Mercedes, say, overall, considering where they've been, and they've got to be happy with a car on the podium. I'm going to go for a 7 out of 10 though, because I did think he was really scruffy. Next up is teammate Lewis Hamilton, 4th place finish, and he had a horrible qualifying session in the end, didn't it? It looked like he was the man for pole position because he was absolutely flying. He looked like he had the measure of George all weekend, and in Q3 it didn't come back again. It was about 2/10 down, and that was far too much in a circuit here where it is, you know, a tenth or half a tenth, quarter to tenth, 1.1 of a tenth is just, you know, it was all it takes to move 2 or 3 positions. So yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with his qualifying. He was scratching his head saying the tyres just seemed to go. He was questioning the tyre warm-up. There's some issue with the blankets. Now, is he saying there's some sort of sabotage from Mercedes on that point? There are sort of some... It's getting a bit horrible there, the split between him and Mercedes at the moment, isn't it? There's these sort of, yeah, trust issues, I'd say, between Hamilton and the team. Which we've not seen at all, have they? They've been so close and brilliant job together, the pair of them. But this year it's, yeah, getting a little bit spicy, isn't it, there? Hamilton, after the race, was really disappointed. He said it was probably one of his worst races overall, but from the outside it looked like he had a top race from 7th place right up. He was in 3rd place, and I think he was absolutely gutted to miss out on the podium. A first podium race for absolutely ages. And yeah, it was surprising actually. I'm not sure what happened. Did he make a mistake that allowed George to close up on him and make the DRS pass? Because he only had to hold on for a lap or two and that would have been it. But I thought overall he had it. But I thought it was a very good race weekend from him, considering a poor qualifying. He was back on it. I'm going to give him an 8 out of 10, which is a bit surprising probably, considering I give Russell a worse result. But I think he was brilliant this weekend. 5th place, Oscar Piastri. Now, I had him down to win this race in the main predictions. I got that a bit wrong. Qualified in 4th place, finished in 5th. I think he'd be a bit disappointed. He did well to hold off Russell to a point, and then lost out at the end once Russell passed him. Hamilton then got past him. He was, again, struggling too hard on his tyres, which is something that he really does need to work on now. It's becoming a consistent problem for him where he chooses tyres and then he doesn't have anything left to defend with, and especially when you look what Lando Norris has done, because in the early parts of the race Piastri was right up there. He was pumping in fastest laps, absolutely on a charge, but he just seems to be taking too much life of his tyres. He's too aggressive. But overall I think it was a good weekend, but disappointing he'd finished 5th because that car was quick. Look at what Lando Norris did when he was 3-4 seconds a lap quicker. So I think Piastri should be disappointed. I'm sure he will be. I've gone for a 5 out of 10. It's a little bit harsh, but I think that's just where it is. 6th place, Fernando Alonso, and I think this is actually a good result for Fernando. Started there, finished in that position. The Aston Martin was probably, they were glad to be fighting for some decent points rather than just about scraping in the 10th, weren't they, recently? So a good comeback for them. He was happy, held off Lewis Hamilton early on, and then he was a bit in low man's land, wasn't he? Comfortably beat ahead of his teammate and just didn't have enough to catch up and keep up the fight with the Mercedes. But a much better and happier weekend for Fernando. A 7 out of 10 for me. Behind him, Lance Stroll, a good return home this time out, wasn't it? He started in 9th, finished in 7th. It was a solid P8, wasn't it? And then he was running for most of the race. Got up to P7 after the safety car. Yeah, a good home race, good points for the team, double finish. Not far behind Fernando Alonso. He should be much happier with his race weekend. Another 7 out of 10 for me for the Aston Martin. 8th place, Daniel Ricciardo. He had probably one of his best weekends for a long time, isn't it? A 5th place in qualifying, which really set him up. He was always going to struggle to hold on to that position, considering he had 2 Ferraris and a Mercedes right behind him. So I think he probably did the best he could in that job. He was behind Yuki Tsunoda, though, wasn't he? Who sort of made a mistake and gave Daniel that 8th place. Otherwise Daniel should have really finished in 9th for that, which would have been a great double points finish for the team. But a much better weekend from Daniel Ricciardo. He had a lot of criticism, didn't he? Jacques Villeneuve, quite rightly so in my view, really questioning and pushing Danny Ric. Like, he's a big experienced driver, and at the moment he is being outshone by Yuki, but for a mistake by Yuki on that last lap, I mean, it would have been another one where Yuki's beat him in the race despite qualifying behind him. So you could probably be a little grateful for Yuki making that mistake. It makes him look a little bit better, but a much better and stronger weekend. He needs a lot more of these consistently going forward. But I'm going to give him an 8 out of 10 because he did well, held off the guys behind, and a good weekend overall as a package. 9th place, Pierre Gasly. He was all over the place, wasn't he, in this race? Had a touch with Perez, I think it was, early on, and then got the team order to from the team to get past Ocon. Ocon left that too late, so he didn't have a chance really to charge down and pass Daniel Ricciardo. We now found out that Ocon had an issue, and that's why they let Gasly past. Ocon was of the view that he'd be let that position back. Wasn't to be, but I can still understand why now. The team are going to favour Gasly. He's the man staying. Ocon is going. And they kind of want Pierre to stay now, don't they? There are other options available, but is there any somewhere really Gasly would want to go? Talk for another day, but let's back to the race. I think it was a good points finish for Alpine considering where they've been, and he'll be happy with that. A P15 to P9, I think that's a very solid result. I'm going to go for an 8 out of 10 for me on that one. 10th place, Ocon. He started 18th, finished 9th. He was hugely disappointed with the team's call on the team order to let Gasly past. He just felt that it was just a matter of him giving up position. Didn't think Gasly had a chance to really attack Daniel Ricciardo, but he held Gasly up too long to really let him have a chance and go at that, so we wouldn't ever know. And then said, look, I'm the nice guy. I love that from him, playing it classically. But yeah, a brilliant recovery, I've got to say. He was in 9th comfortably for most of the race. Didn't have enough to put any impression on Ricciardo, and I think that's down to the car issues in the end. But overall, a brilliant race. 8 out of 10. Next up, Nico Hülkenberg finished in 11th place, and these guys were absolutely on a charge, weren't they? The only guys, the two Hasses, to go on the wets. It was absolutely the right call to do that early on. Had they had a bit more rain, they would have looked like absolute geniuses, wouldn't they? Absolutely flying. Started 17th, and they were well into the points, sort of 5 or 6 laps in. You could just see the power and the grip that they had that nobody else could manage. Absolutely brilliant from them, but it was a shame that it only lasted to lap 11, really. Nico Hülkenberg tried to do the long stint and just switch to dries. I think that was really ambitious because he was going to always lose far too much time once them wets started to degrade, and they would have badly as soon as we started to see a bit of a dry line. So I can see why they tried it. They were so far down, and it's worth a Hail Mary from there. Nearly paid off for them, and then it was just not enough to get into the top 10, wasn't it? It was thereabouts for some points. I think they probably just lost a little bit too much time. Him especially staying on that wets a bit too long. But yeah, a decent race overall. I can see what they tried. Shame it didn't work out, but I'm giving him a 6 out of 10. 12th place, Kevin Magnussen, and he was right up there, wasn't he? In 4th, 5th place, right on the hunt of the McLarens. He pitted probably about the sensible time, went for Inters, but it was all the hard work he'd done. He lost far too much time in the pits. An 8-second stop. I think there must have been some sort of miscommunication there because the team just didn't expect him, didn't have any tyres ready for him, which was a real shame because they did a great job with the Inters. And had they done that, potentially would have been right in the mix for some points. But a good race for the pair of the Haas teams, but yeah, just not enough to nick some points in the end. But from where they started, a very decent recovery in the end. But I'm going to go for a 5 out of 10 for him. He finished behind his teammate and started a lot further up than him, so I'll be disappointed with that. 13th place finish for Valtteri Bottas. These guys have just been nowhere, have they? They were miles languishing at the back, no pace, way down. The pit lane struggles have returned again, haven't they? They were struggling with both cars in the pits, slow stops again. Just another poor weekend for the team. Not an awful lot Valtteri could have done, but a 4 out of 10 for him. 14th place, Yuki Tsunoda, and this is probably the most disappointing because he had a brilliant qualifying in 8th. He ran well for most of the race. He was up to P7 when the safety car came out. A good recovery to then make it back after a couple of mistakes. Was P8, ran P8, and that big mistake, so unfortunate. I think he just tried to avoid the Aston Martin, didn't he? Went off and yeah, really cost him dearly in the end. Was going to be a good points finish, beating his teammate who qualified ahead of him. And it's, yeah, he's just got a new contract and not the way he probably wanted to celebrate it. A double points finish would have been absolutely fantastic for him and the team. And yeah, I was a bit gutted for him. A 5 out of 10 for me. 15th place, the last of the runners, Zhou Guan Yu, the only guy to get lapped in the end. 1 lap down, he finished. Yeah, the car's slow, the poor pit stop, and he's not really done anything to say why he deserves a spot in that car next year. You know, the pressure is really building on these guys to perform. There's only 1 seat available in that Sauber, and I don't think he'll be the man to get it, unfortunately, at the moment, and I don't see where else he would go. It's getting tight. The only other guys' options are Alpine potentially, but I'm not sure they'd want him. Sadly, as bad as that sounds, he's not really done anything at Sauber. What do you think? Yes, he'll be the man for us, but yeah, I've given him a 1 out of 10. And let's get to the DNFs. Start with Logan Sargent, another. Well, he qualified well, didn't he? 13th place, and then DNF, a mistake. He had a scruffy race. He'd be disappointed. Another one without a seat, and Williams clearly saying they want Sainz. I think his time is up at Williams, and I don't think he's done enough to get a seat elsewhere. No rating because he didn't finish the race and only did 25 laps. And then a DNF for 2 Ferraris, Charles Leclerc. Ferraris had a stinker, didn't they? He had a horrible race, had engine issues early on, managed to sort them out in the pits. They then tried they just went to the Ferrari of 22, didn't they, where they just really strange pit stop calls, went for the another Hail Mary, didn't they, just to hope something would work. The track would dry enough. They went on the hards as well of the 2 tyres. You normally want to go for a medium to see you can get the tyre warmed up and give yourself half a chance. Didn't work at all. A couple of laps in, he was losing 20 seconds a lap to the leaders, so it was just a matter of time before he got lapped. Eventually retired the car after a massive high of Monaco. Ferrari have been really consistent and done really well, haven't they? But this was, I guess you just got to let them off because it was a one-off. But a disappointing weekend. No rating for him. Carlos Sainz, another one. Got a damaged front wing at one point with, I can't remember who the collision was now, but he wasn't really ever fighting for anything decent. Was in the points, made the mistake and spun, and that sadly took out Albon with him, didn't he? But yeah, it's just summed up Ferrari's weekend. Horrible. No rating for him. Alex Albon I feel the most disappointed for, because he didn't have a fantastic qualifying, but was well, he started 10th I suppose, so good enough. And then in the race he was right in the hunt for some points after a poor start, but got himself way back in there. Some brilliant strategy calls, and looked like he'd be on for some solid points, and he was just really unlucky because he didn't know where to go. And then as Sainz spun, didn't stay on the brakes, did he? Just rolled into the Williams, which is, yeah, he should have done better there, Carlos Sainz. And Albon was, yeah, probably get apology for it. It's no good for him because some decent points were on the card for him. No rating for Alex Albon either. And then finally the last DNF, Sergio Perez, the big one. Just a horrible weekend after coming off the high of getting a new contract for another year, or to 2 years should I say, to 26 for Sergio Perez. He's not really done anything to show why he deserves it this weekend. A poor qualifying, started 16th thanks to the 2 Saubers starting from the pits. He hit Gasly on lap 1, and then was in a fight to hold off Kevin Magnussen. He just was absolutely nowhere, and then made a mistake, absolutely big hit, dropped it, came round to go back to the pits, and that's cost him. Got a fine for the team, and he's going to get a 3-place grid penalty for Spain for doing that. That rear wing was, he should have just retired it there. I'm not sure why he tried to make it back to the pits. There was no way they were going to fix it in for him to carry on. So yeah, another mistake, cost him for the next race, and they should be better there. Will he be better there? He needs a good result at Spain it's going awfully like last season, isn't it? After the drop off of Miami, and we've seen the same for the next couple of races after that. He needs something to sort of kickstart him season or his career at Red Bull again. It's, yeah, looking horrible. I'm going to give him 1 out of 10 because he went so far into the race, and I just think it was just awful. But there we go. Let's get to the predictions review. I got this one absolutely horribly wrong, didn't I? For qualifying, I had Piastri on pole, Leclerc second, and Carlos Sainz third. I thought the Ferraris would be absolutely firing on it, but George Russell pulled off an almighty surprise with the Mercedes on pole. Verstappen was second and Norris third in qualifying. For the race, I had Piastri winning it. It was Max that took the glory there. A second place for Charles Leclerc, and it was Lando Norris that took that position. And third place, I thought it would be Norris. It was George Russell. I predicted a good weekend for the McLarens, and I think we can say that. Norris second. A bit disappointing from Piastri, I suppose, in fifth, but Norris could have won that race, so I'm going to take that as a I got that one right, because the McLaren were absolutely flying. I thought it'd be a bad result for the Red Bulls. I guess you can say that on Sergio Perez's side, but Max pulled off an almighty win, didn't he? They didn't look favourite at any point of the weekend, but he pulled off a lap that was good enough for pole position. And in the race, he was just stuck by it, didn't he? Even in the early part of his struggles, he was never out of the race, and that's what a true champion does. Keeps himself in touching distance. Any little chance he gets, he takes absolutely a full advantage of it, and he absolutely did. Yeah, so I'm going to go for a 50-50 on that one, but it was wrong. It wasn't a bad weekend for Red Bull. It probably should have been, but great damage limitation from Max Verstappen to pull off a win was, yeah, brilliant. But there we go, that's a wrap for Canada. Absolutely fantastic racing all weekend. It was brilliant qualifying, brilliant in the race, mixed conditions, safety cars, mixed up grid, teams that just came to the track flying. Mercedes were fantastic. We had Norris, Red Bull, a three-way fight for the win. Fights all the way down the field, wasn't it? And Canada does deliver. It's a fantastic racetrack, and I love it when we get mixed conditions, and we always seem to get them here at Canada. And I think that's probably why it retains a spot in the fixtures where it does, because we come to Europe, fly away to the Canada, and then back to the European races, don't we? So yeah, next time out we head to Spain. Yeah, it should be a Red Bull dominant track, and it'll be interesting, this one, to see where everyone lines up. I can't wait for the action to get going again. It was fantastic weekend of racing at Canada. But there we have it. That's the driver ratings and my predictions review. Thanks for watching as always. Please like, subscribe and comment as you always do. See you next time.